When people ask me, what's so special about First Baptist on Fifth? I answer quickly. It's not our building, though lovely, or our worship, though meaningful, not our gatherings, though life-giving, or even our missions and ministries in the world, though impactful. The very best part of First on Fifth? Our people, hands down. In our Confession of Identity, we said this of our community. Here, you'll see retirees and families with rambunctious little ones, teenagers discovering their identities, middle-agers juggling all the demands of this season, young people navigating adulthood for the first time, and seniors rich in wisdom and encouragement. You can read our fiery op-eds in the paper, pass us moving about on the city streets, see us building ramps for the underserved, catch us finding beauty in our gardens and on hiking trails, and experience us taking delight in the world. At the core of our community, we are folks who love each other well. And at the core of our life together, we share in meaningful conversation about what it means to live and love in this world. That's what you'll hear and who you'll hear from in our new podcast series called Together. Each episode will be hosted by one of our ministers and will feature a conversation with one or two or even several of our beloved church members. They'll answer a handful of questions about their story, about objects or artifacts that represent their journey, about questions or doubts they wrestle with, and why they are a member, and finally, what gives them hope. As you listen to their wisdom and laughter, their audacious hope and abundant love, I trust you'll be as inspired and moved as I am on the regular. T.S. Eliot once asked, "What life have you if you have not life together?" Join us this season for Life Together.
Welcome to the First Baptist on Fifth Life Together podcast series. We're so glad to have Carlos Mir in conversation with us today. Carlos joined First Baptist in 2001 and has been fully engaged over these intervening years in our music and arts ministry, particularly through drama and film. Carlos currently serves as co-leader of our music and arts team and leads our film ministry through First Film screenings each month. In addition, Carlos serves as one of our chief ushers, so he's one of the friendly faces that worshipers meet on Sunday mornings. Carlos, we have several questions to frame this conversation. Here's the first one. Tell us your story, particularly the people, places, or seasons of your life that have most powerfully shaped, for good or ill, your understanding of God and self.
Well, and David, I'm sure you know that I was raised Catholic, so I grew up in a very small apartment. I didn't have a bedroom to myself, but we certainly had 3 portraits of Jesus in that apartment, and a couple of crucifixes, and so Jesus was very much in the Mir family, but personally, I always had a communication with God. Like I was always communicating, like when there was a situation that should I be eating this, or, or should I be doing this? I would feel that God was communicating directly with me. So I've always had that strong feeling of the presence of God in my life. And really, that's been the main thing that's guided me. That no matter where I've been, even when I've been scared, I've been in situations that I got actually beaten up in a movie theater, in the bathroom of a movie theater in the late 70s in Chicago. Wow. And there were times that I thought, what's going on? But I've always felt that God's going to look out for me, that there's a force there for me.
So Chicago's a rough place, is that right?
Well, it was the 70s, and we were watching a karate movie, so I think some of the people just got overexcited.
So you were born in Cuba, right? Came here early in your life.
I was 4 years old.
Raised in Chicago.
Raised in
mostly.
Chicago, yes.
Roundabout, you went to Georgia at some point, then came to Winston-Salem. So quite a.
That's right. We left. I married Sally, who was from Georgia, and we moved to sort of slow down. We had 2 kids and get out of the big city and be closer to her family. And the weather was nicer than the winters in Chicago that I suffered through. So yes, we moved to the South, and we initially moved to Columbus, Georgia, and it just wasn't really the place for us. But we ended up finding Winston to be a much better fit for us, and I've been here ever since.
Excellent. If you had to choose 3 objects or artifacts that represent your journey of life and faith, what would those be?
Well, I can't say that I have those. I mean, I still have my mother's Bible, but I really don't put a lot of stock in things. I try to carry God in my heart, and I'm not attached to the physical. Because all the stuff gets lost and misplaced, and it has some meaning to some people, but to other people it's just junk. So it's not. I can't say that I have one thing or one symbol to represent that.
Carlos, I know that you are an actor. You've been to film school. You've been on both sides of the camera, I'm sure. What role does film or art play in your faith life? Is there any connection with that as you've studied film over the years? The wisdom that you bring to the First Films series, the films you choose, how you explain those. What do you see in films that might inform your faith life?
And that's definitely true, because I grew up watching a lot of, in Chicago in the winter, there's not much you can do when it's, 20 below outside. So you watch a lot of movies, and we were lucky to have a lot of. Chicago had more than 3 stations, so we had some choice, and they showed a lot of old movies. So that's where my love for film developed in watching these movies. But I remember in the 70s, if you recall, It's a Wonderful Life fell out of copyright. So any place that had a print could show it. Mm-hmm. So it was seen a lot around Christmas time. And that's probably the first time I saw it. And what always struck me about that film was the scene where Jimmy Stewart is at the bar. He's lost his money. He faces the loss of the building and loan that's been in his family and represents something to the town. And he's desperate, and he prays. And his desperation. And the first time I think I've ever seen someone pray on TV, that wasn't a joke.
Right. Right.
And it was so meaningful to me that it always stuck with me.
How many movies do you have? How many copies of films do you have? You're quite a collector, aren't you?
I have a lot of, and I change and I get rid of some, but I do have a lot of films that do you have
a favorite film? That's a hard question.
That is a very hard question. It's, I'd say It's a Wonderful Life is one of them, one of the top 3. And you can't, if you have the opportunity to see Lawrence of Arabia in a theater, in a widescreen format, it is just an incredible film in every sense.
Great. What questions or doubts do you wrestle with the most? Questions or doubts that you wrestle with?
I think the biggest struggle I have is the injustice in the world, the injustice in we've had a friend just die of cancer, and young, and you wonder why is it touched on certain people and others not, and it makes no difference who those people are, and just the fact that there's war and strife and killing and religious wars, and I remember right now in the Middle East we have a religious war. In a sense, you have a state that's a religious state that's carpet bombing other countries, and unfortunately, we derive a lot of our Christianity comes out of Judaism. So it's hard to reconcile that in your life. The killing, and the just loss of life. And then when you have a hurricane like that, we saw a few weeks ago, and how people have been lost and devastated. It's horrible. And yet, routinely, there are typhoons in the other side of the world that kill thousands of people. It's not in the hundreds, it's in the thousands. And over here, we don't really bat an eye about that.
Yeah, when I think about questions and doubts, I have to go to film to think. A lot of films entertain the questions and the doubts that we have. And I don't know if you could speak to that, of how, whether films have played that role in your life of trying to answer some questions or at least address some questions or doubts. I know you've shown some profound movies that we've seen here that address some of those things. One of those about the most recent film that you showed. So do films play any role in addressing some of those questions and doubts?
Definitely. I think that you see that in many films, and sometimes it just comes out of it may not be designed that way, but we as an artist, you make something, and something from the subconscious seeps through into your film, and you see that. But one film that is probably not talked about much these days is Crimes and Misdemeanors, because it was directed by Woody Allen, and his star has not been so bright of late. But it's an interesting film because I think he is an atheist, but obviously culturally Jewish, and that film tries to, and it uses symbols like the rabbi is going blind. So the people that represent God and religion are losing their sight. And yet, to me, there's, even in that film, there's hope for life.
I know that you notice everything about films, of camera angles and what the director's trying to do with all that. And I think all that speaks to what the film's trying to communicate.
Well, I mean, we make guesses, we're not always right sometimes. Sometimes we feel, he's probably doing that. Or maybe that's an allusion to an earlier film, or, those students of, because if you go to film school and you study films, you see all of this, that's sort of exposed for you. But like in anything, like in music, the leitmotifs, that's done, in film too, not only through music and the score, but also visually. There are recurring metaphors in films. I believe Seven Samurai uses the circle a lot as a recurring theme. So that's interesting, but I mean, it's may play a role, may not, and it may have been designed that way or not. It just happenstance from the production.
It's great. How or why did you come to be a member of First on Fifth? You touched on this just a little bit. Are there any unique First on Fifth kind of stories in your experience?
Well, we were looking for a church here in Winston. We moved in 2000, and we visited several churches with 2 toddlers in tow. And oddly enough, we weren't welcomed or helped along, because it's a struggle to get 2 kids ready and go to church. But when we visited First Baptist, Edie Waterer, if you remember Edie, came out to us and immediately recognized that we needed to know where the nursery was. And if you entered through the front, that nursery is really far away, and you had no idea. And that's back when we had the other buildings.
Right.
It's, you need someone to guide you. And we felt so loved or cared for that we ended up coming. We stayed for the sermon and kept returning.
So as co-chief usher, how has that informed what you do in the narthex?
I try to be, and it's easy to forget. I haven't had toddlers in a long time, so it's easy to forget when you're an adult. But that is a challenge when you see. Fortunately, a lot of people don't come through the front where I'm usually ushering, so I don't tend to see those families. But if I do. And when we worked the bookmarks, I saw some people that needed some assistance. So, yeah, that's exactly. I know what you're looking for. You're looking for a bathroom and a place to sit, usually.
Good, Carlos. A final question. This is a tough world. What gives you hope right now?
Well, I'm expecting a call. That I won the million.
That could be it.
Hope is, there's so much hope because I see it in, you see all these stories of people, including our church, helping those people that have been struck by the hurricane. But constantly, there are so many stories of people going out of their way, and there's more stories of that. Of people helping each other, doing something, then there are stories of thefts and burglaries and, but we're not going to lead the story, the news, the nightly news with a story of people helping each other. It's going to be about a killing or a murder or some crazy thing. But there's many more of those stories, and we need to seek them out and know that people are understanding that one of the main messages of Christianity is how we have to look out for one another, that we're connected, we're all part. And if we can learn to see everyone else with the eyes of God, as God sees us, then I think we'll be all in a better place.
Wonderful. Are there any films that you can think of that just hope comes to mind with I was putting you on the spot with that, but I think you are such a student of film. Probably a lot.
There's so many, it's hard because it's hard to come up with one right at the moment, but there's many films that obviously in drama you have to set up some type of conflict to have drama, to actually have a story. I mean, you got to set up a conflict that either gets resolved or maybe you leave it open-ended. So, but there has to be that. But the one that we showed recently, The Impossible, which basically a family literally torn apart by the tsunami in 2004, spread apart, and somehow they not only survived the tsunami, but managed to get back together and help other people and be helped by other people. And that is a great hope for me, that we're going to take care of each other, even if we don't speak the same language.
Thank you, Carlos, for sharing with us today. It's been great, and thanks to our listeners for tuning into this Life Together podcast. To listen to previous podcasts, you can find them at our website, firstonfifth.org, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.